I first joined an America's Cup team. It was all about harden the F up and get on with it.
David Freddie Carr is a seasoned British sailor with a distinguished career spanning over 2 decades.
This boat was going downwind at 50, 55, 60 miles an hour, jumping out the back of waves. Having the setup to try and learn really fast is so important, and you have to recognise very early on what you're crap at.
A top sailor in his own right, he transitioned from traditional sailor to cyclist for his 6th America's Cup campaign.
It's a pretty wild sport, and been unfortunate to lose a few friends. It was the most tragic occurrence. He lost his life when his boat that he was training on that day capsized. What it really does do is it makes you really appreciate the days that you have. On the days that it's going to be really windy and we're going out on a foiling boat and I'm leaving the house early, I'll go and give the kids a kiss.
All this and more on the Privileged Man podcast.
So, Freddie Carr, welcome to the Privileged Man podcast. Thank you so much for joining us from Portugal today.
Thank you so much for having me, Pete. I've been looking forward to this for a while, actually, since you and I started talking after the last America's Cup. It's been a date in my diary, and actually it's been a really nice thing for me coming out of high performance sport just to collect my thoughts, actually getting ready for this chat. It's been quite a nice process to have that in the background.
Awesome. Well, absolutely privileged to have you. So here we go. First question. How are you feeling post America's Cup? You know, that 25 years of your career now, you know, pinnacle, I guess the pinnacle being in October at the America's Cup. We just talked off air about, you know, learning from other sportsmen who come off retirement, if you like, or the top of their game and then dive into civvy life, and it's tricky. So, I mean, honestly speaking, how are you actually feeling?
My overwhelming feeling that I still have is I'm still so immensely proud of what we, as the British America's Cup team in Ineos Britannia, achieved in the last cycle where we got to the America's Cup match. And that was going through a lot of adversity. You know, it wasn't a sure run thing for sure. And just immensely proud of the team and how we got there and how we got better throughout the regatta to go and race against Team New Zealand, and selfishly really proud of what I brought to that team. As you said, Pete, after 23 years of being in the America's Cup, you'd hope I'd have a few things to bring to the team. And we went through some big ups and downs, and that's, I'm a people person. I really believe in the team culture, and the stronger the team is, the better the outcome will be. And I was really proud of what I brought to the team this summer. And then the other overriding emotion is that I'm absolutely exhausted. And I still am exhausted physically and mentally. It's sort of 3 or 4 months now post last race. And I am having to really take it slow to kind of get my thoughts together, get my body back together. But I have also been blessed with hanging out with the family more than I've hung out with them since my boys were born and since I got married. And just seeing the positives in that has been really good. So all in all, doing really well. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah. Great. Awesome. And so how old are your boys?
Are 15 and 10. And like me, and like my wife, Bianca, their whole life has been evolved around America's Cup cycles. We talk about our stages in life, much like an Olympian would talk about London 2012 or Rio 2016. We talk about San Francisco 2013 or Bermuda 2017 or Auckland 21 or obviously now Barcelona 24. So yes, they've been on the journey with me as well, and they've had to put up with a dad that is away far too much, a dad that's probably in their lifetime has provided them with what I hope is some real insights in how you can go and achieve your goals. But they've had to tolerate me being a grumpy high performance athlete as well. I think all top sportsmen would be lying if they were saying that they were skipping around the house every day because their hobby is their job and they get remunerated well for being a sportsman. It's really tough as well. So Yeah, the boys are great, and they for sure are enjoying having a dad that is no longer spending 7 days a week sailing and training and talking about sail shapes and sitting on the sofa, being a bit absent, thinking about how to make the boat go faster. So we've had a really good 3 or 4 months.
Yeah, it's great. Did you get that sense that during the America's Cup that they were proud of you? Can they tell you that? Or can they, how did they express themselves to you during it all?
We're a really emotionally open family. And a lot of that comes from my Welsh wife, Bianca. She's always been a hugger. We've always talked about everything. And I think I've brought that home from me from work. I really believe in this checking the ropes with your teammates, like always talking to your teammates and being super honest and open about where we are and where we're going and how we're feeling, which has changed massively in my 20 years in the Cup. And the boys on a daily basis they knew that I was going to stop sailing in the America's Cup world at that time. And they were, every day before I'd walk out the house to go racing, they'd give me a hug, particularly my 10-year-old. It really dawned on him the gravity of what we were up to. And that, without doubt, is my fondest memories of this America's Cup cycle, is as a 40-year-old chap sitting down with the family and saying, look, I really want to do this last America's Cup, but I'm 10 years older than any other performance, say, athletic-based sailor on the team. It's going to take commitment from all of us, and you've got to be ready for Dad to be pretty grumpy and pretty tired. And I was basically training like a Tour de France cyclist at 42 years old, and they were all in. And as soon as they were all in and they said, yep, you go and do it, then I was all in. And that made this summer the most incredible thing, because I think it's probably the biggest lessons that they'll ever learn, far more than sport, is hopefully, and I feel like I'm blowing my own trumpet, but hopefully here for them to see me go through what I went through to get there, to reach where we did this summer.
I speak for them and say yes. Thank you, chap.
It's interesting you say that about like the camaraderie and the leadership and all the rest of it, because dare I say it, your skipper is known to be a bit of a badass in terms of in terms of his drive and a mood. Was he into the sharing his caring vibe, or was that left to you?
I mean, that was on all of us. But what I would say is when I first joined an America's Cup team in 2021, it was all about harden the F up and get on with it. There was absolutely not an inch of room to have conversation around how you were feeling. There was very hierarchical, like as a nipper as I was then, I didn't feel like I had the opportunity to voice my opinion on various things. Now, that's not right or wrong. It's just how the world was 25 years ago. There was not this really healthy conversation around mental health, which is healthy. And throughout the 10 years that I've been with Ben Ainsey and the British team, every year we've just become better at talking about how we're feeling and how we're doing. And do you know what? That just makes the team feel happier. The team have more fun. And in a real roundabout way, it makes the boat go faster. And I think you can look across all sports teams. Successful sports teams are happy, cohesive sports teams. We recognize that. And then we pushed to do that more and more. Like I said, it's a phrase I've already used already, but we have it written on the wall in our changing rooms and in our debriefing room, is that we check the ropes. Every day we check the ropes with our teammates and make sure our teammates are fine. And it's not just a, hey mate, you're right, and then a generic, yeah, I'm fine. You just have a little conversation every day with each one of your teammates, my 16 sailing teammates, and it's just be like, hey mate, how's your kids settling into that new school? And you just start those little conversations, and before you know it, you're having little conversations, and that network builds and builds and builds. And then when it comes time to have like a tough conversation, it's easy because you've done all the background work. So yeah, we check the ropes every day, and we make sure you check the ropes harder with people that you don't necessarily click with personality-wise than your good mates. It's a skill. Yeah. You have to go and do it.
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, there's so many lessons to be learned there. I'm sure there are a whole bunch of leaders listening to this going, that's how to drive performance. Maybe I should be going around the floor of the office talking a little bit more and checking, as you say, checking the ropes. Valuable stuff. And did your, just moving on a little bit, your dad, Rod, he was the president of the SRIA and chairman of UK Sport. Yeah, I mean, how much of this did he bring to you, or did he bring his leadership in a different way?
No, it was huge. He wasn't a pushy dad at all. You might think my dad being involved in sailing, therefore he was really into me to get into the sport and follow down that pathway. But I've been thinking about the influence of my dad on me, particularly during this last cycle. And between the ages of 8 and 12, he was the Olympic coach for Olympic sailing. And that was ironically, around Barcelona 92. So where we've just had the last America's Cup. And in my school holidays, I'd go and sit in his rubber inflatable. I'd follow him around Europe and I'd go and sit in his rubber inflatable as he went out and coached all the dinghies getting ready for the Olympic classes. And that for me, really subconsciously, was I was sat there behind my dad, listening to him speak to these Olympic athletes and coach them and talk to them and then come ashore and debrief them there. And I was sitting there probably not really paying too much attention, but subconsciously, I reckon I was learning so much. And then I think I really vividly remember he would talk to these sailors who had had a good race or a bad race. And I'd listen to Dad talk to them about what they can do differently and how are they feeling? How do you feel about that? And should we try this? And then I just think I learned so much from that. So from like the age of 8 or 10, I was living in a coaching environment. And although it was early 90s and this world of high performance sport and high performance mindset didn't exist, I reckon really quietly I was learning how to operate in that world already, just watching Dad talk to his athletes. And it's only in the last 6 months that I've kind of figured out what an impact that had on me, I think.
Probably had time to actually think about it, right?
For the first time in a long time, yeah.
Yeah, awesome. And I guess a lot of people talk to you about, Ben Ainslie, and a lot of people talk to you about your dad, but what about your mum?
Mum was unbelievable. She was a special needs math teacher for close on to 40 years and she's like just got so much empathy for people and just wants to care and look after people, and particularly people at the state school that I went to, Perrins in Hampshire, and just really looking after the kids that didn't necessarily have all the opportunities that the other kids in that area did have, as you'd imagine, from the middle of Hampshire. And Mum was huge and just such a people person and so kind and always wanted to look out for people as well. So watching Mum, and I went to my mum's school, which was probably good and bad because she often had teachers come into the staff room telling them that I'd been a little brat for the day or whatever. But no, I learned so much off Mum, and more than anything around kind of empathy and looking after people that are not as in such a fortunate position as we were at that time.
When you look around the team and when you look around the various other people doing great things in sailing, and you ask about the families, etc., what's the common thread? What's the common thread of why they're there? How they got there?
Yeah, I think more than anything, it's just support, isn't it? It's just that support network. And, it doesn't necessarily have to come from your mum and dad. It's amazing if it does, because it's there the whole time in the background reinforcing you. But support from a world-class coach, support from a mentor, support from anyone. If there's someone out there who genuinely thinks you're going to go and do well in something, and that doesn't have to be winning a gold medal or doing well in the America's Cup, just achieving your goal, your small goal that you might have set this year, early January. If there's someone out there who genuinely wants you to do that thinks you can do that, that is so powerful. That is so powerful. And I think that that's kind of almost comes back to being a really good teammate. If you're there and you genuinely want your teammates to do really well, like beat you in fitness tests, sail the boat better than you, then that empowers the team so much as well. So I think more than anything, it is just finding that person or being that person that can, without question, without breaking, support someone else and always be there to have a chat when the chips are up and the chips are down, just be a real solid influence. I think it's really easy to say that you're going to be that person and I will mentor you. Yeah, let's do all this. I'm currently doing some mentorship with a young lad coming into sailing at the moment from North London called Kai. And he's gone to do great things right now. He was a junior with us in the America's Cup team and is now moving into other parts of the sport. And it's just, I don't need to have big, deep and meaningfuls with him every day. I need to ping him funny text messages and share stories. And I want him to know that he can always call me whatever and we will figure something out. So yeah, you just be that person to support someone else or find that person for you.
It's interesting, isn't it? It doesn't need to be this omnipresent, constant texting, but there's that energy of omnipresence. There's that energy of like, if I need it, someone's got my back.
That's exactly it.
And so tell me, who was the person? Just honestly, you talked about your age earlier, and then I saw what you were doing in the boat. And for those non-sailors, perhaps, I mean, sailing has advanced so much in the last 20 years. It's basically, the guys doing the hard work have gone from pulling ropes to grinding to biking.
That's stupid. Seriously.
Yeah, so how did who had your back? Who honestly said you can go from being like a sailor to I don't know if you're a grinder, I can't remember.
That's right, yeah,
grinder, and then become a Tour de France biker. I mean, who said you could do that? Who gave you the permission to be like, yeah, Freddie, you can do that?
Yeah. It's a really close friend of mine, a sports scientist. So I got into sailing because I was a sailor. As you said, Pete, I'd pull ropes and work winches, and I was lucky enough to win sort of good regattas as a youth that put me on the global stage to start my America's Cup career. And yes, it was lucky, but I worked hard and you make your own luck. So I got there. Then the sport moved into, for my size of person, sort of 95, 100 kilos, you had to be fit to get on the boat. You had to be fit to grind with your arms. And then in this last America's Cup cycle, you had to be fit to cycle with your legs. And sailing's a funny sport. We do 100 kilometers now on these foiling, flying boats nowadays. And fundamentally, the more wattage we can put out with our legs as 4 cyclors, we call ourselves, which is a slightly odd name, the more we can move the sails, the faster the boat goes. So there's a direct correlation between fitness and boat speed. So you'd think to yourself, why don't you go and hire a bunch of Tour de France cyclists? The fact is those guys are amazing athletes, but not heavy enough. Their total wattages aren't quite where we wanted to be. The guy who told me was a great friend of mine called Ben Williams. He's a fantastic sports scientist, and he is now head of human performance for the Brooklyn Nets, actually, the NBA team. So his trajectory through his sporting career, he started with us in the sailing team 10 years ago, then went on to the Ineos Grenadiers cycling team. He did such a great job with us. And then he went to QPR, and now he's been headhunted over to America. So I'm very proud of the journey he's been on. But he turned around to me 10 years ago after a fitness test, and I was kind of always known as the kind of chubby, jolly, fit lad who, yeah, Freddie's got a decent engine on him and, he can do a job. And I remember Ben Williams sat me down one day after a fitness test and he said, Fred, you have got a bloody good engine. And I'd never considered myself as an athlete. I'd considered myself as a sailor. And he was like, you have got a bloody good engine. If you really buy into the programming, the nutrition and the lifestyle that I will make easy for you to do, I can make you super fit. And I didn't believe him. I laughed it off. I was like, come on, mate. I'm 100 kilo fat lad from Hampshire who's been hanging on the side of yachts my whole life. But he was right. And amazingly, I was lucky to have a big heart and a big set of lungs genetically. And I worked with Glenn. I followed his program to a T. And within 2 years, at the age of about 33, I'd lost 10 kilos and was running 3.5-hour marathons and doing 2,000 meters on a rowing machine in just under 6 minutes and 8 seconds. So, I mean, that's a bit of a brag, but I would never have thought I could have done that unless this one guy said to me, you got this. If you do what I say, you will get fit. And if you don't, it's on me. It's not on you. So that was quite liberating to go, actually, I'm going to do what he says. And if I don't get fit enough, I'm going to have a word with him.
Amazing. Can I have his number?
Yeah, fair enough.
Awesome. Although I'm a bit sort of slightly put off by the QPR that is, you know, you're Ineos, QPR, then off to New York.
Yeah,
it's just like,
it's a funny journey. It's a funny journey.
Well, it sounds amazing, but I mean, in all seriousness, that's an incredible, you know, as you say, make your own luck, but you've got to reach out for, honestly, that help and support, isn't it? It's about take it, you know, you may say in subconsciously or say to yourself, I want this, I want this, I want this, but unless you actually take some action and actually reach out for it, it's not going to happen.
You're right. And he was the guy that in that pivotal year where we'd finished the America's Cup in Auckland in 2021 and we lost the Challenger Series final. So we'd effectively come third. And I was 39 at the time. I was satisfied with my career, but I wasn't done with it. And then the change came to cycling and I was like, oh boy, here we go. I've got to try and now turn all this upper body aerobic fitness into legs. And I gave myself a timeline. I gave myself 3 months to get the minimum testing requirement that I believed that Ineos Britannia was going to want for a cyclist with their legs, which was 450 watts for 20 minutes. So I gave myself 3 months to do it. And it was really nice to have such a clear goal and to know that if I was going to get there, I was going to get a job and go on and do the next America's Cup. And if I wasn't going to get there, I couldn't turn around and say, well, I didn't try. I didn't give it everything. And luckily, again, following Ben's program, I got there. And yeah, the rest is what we led into this incredible summer that we've just been through.
Amazing. I mean, 450 for 20 minutes, but nailing it for 3 seconds. If I can get to 450, it's literally
you do not realize what that level of, and I was the least fit in the team. Like I was the oldest and the least fit. Some of the numbers the young guys were doing was mind blowing. But at that moment in time when you're doing those things, you have no comprehension of just how finely tuned you are. And it's unsustainable. Like we did very good job of peaking for this summer. But you look back at the numbers now and it's definitely a privilege to have been able to go and live in that sort of rarefied air of with those British rowers and sailors and cyclors and train with them. Yeah.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. Yeah. I mean, you're certainly a product of the environment, right? I mean, there's
no room for second place. Talking of second place. So you've got all the friendships, you've got this team, you've got this buzzy team. What did New Zealand have that we didn't?
What did Team New Zealand have that we didn't? Ultimately, the fastest boat wins the America's Cup. The fastest boat has always won the America's Cup. And it's quite tough for a sailor to say you could put an average sailing team on the fastest boat and they would win the America's Cup. They had a faster boat than us in this version of it, in this AC75 version 2. They did a really good job with their software, so how they controlled their boat. If you looked at the kind of hardware of the boat, be it the sails and the foils, and the hull shapes are a little bit different, but fundamentally, the top end speed of the boats were similar. We were maybe slightly slower upwind, and and we were slightly faster downwind. But the software package, I believe the software package that they had on their boat that allowed the sails to work together, allowed the foils to work together to produce better than us. What they did better than us were their accelerations. So out of all of the maneuvers, of which there are a lot, as you may or may not have seen, the sailing now is on a boundaried race course. So it's like a pitch. You have to ping off the sides of the pitch the whole time as you're going around this race course. So that fundamentally means there's 30 to 40 accelerations out of these maneuvers in every America's Cup race. And that's what they did better than us. And I believe they did that better than us because the software, the way that their boat was working with the foils and the sails together was really slick. We got close by the end of the America's Cup match. We were close-ish, but they were definitely a step ahead, and full credit to them for that.
Yeah. So 2 things I heard out of that, well, amongst others, were one, that they were average sailors.
I tell you, that is not the case, but you said it, not me.
And 2, it was the guys on the computer's fault. So, I mean...
Oh, you're going to get me in trouble, Pete. No, not at all. Not at all. But it's... go on, carry on, chap.
Looking at it, man to man and all the rest of it, it was... I mean, they were superb. I mean, they're superb sailors, but I mean... So
you're right, and there's a day for me that kind of personifies the racing, and like I said, they were worthy winners. They were worthy winners, and I'm immensely proud of winning the Challenger Series to go and challenge them in that match. But there was a day where they won the first 4 races, and that was tough for us. That was like, right, okay, what we'd brought against the Italians, Luna Rossa, in beating them in the Louis Vuitton Cup final, the Challenger Series final, was that level is not good enough to go and challenge and or win this America's Cup. We are talking like we've got to find another 5% here, guys. We need to step up, and you're doing this live. You're doing this coaching during the game effectively. And then we had a really good training session before on a lay day, went out the next day, made some big jumps. And what we were incredible at doing, and I actually think we were the best team in Barcelona at doing this, is we learned faster than everyone else. And that's really powerful. Having the ability and having the setup to try and learn really fast is so important. And for me to be able to learn really fast, you have to recognize very early on what you're crap at. So we would look around all the other teams and go, right, they're better at that than us. In this, doing this, they're better than us. Why? Why are they better than that? Okay, they do that better than us. Let's, for want of a better description, copy them to a point and then try and build on it. And if you're humble enough to recognize that you're not the best at certain things, then that's the first block of learning, isn't it? And you go from there, you learn and learn and learn, and you learn faster than everyone else. And that's why our performance this summer was getting better and better and better through every round, because we had such a good setup to learn. This is a personal thing for me, and it's not necessarily adopted by all of my team and all of my teammates. But I look at like the Bazball revolution in cricket that's happened in the last 4 years, where fundamentally Brendan McCullum's taken the same group of players and just by slightly tweaking their mindset has turned this side that lost 15 out of 17 tests into absolute world beaters on any day. And the one thing that he brought to that group was positivity. There's positivity. And I thought he did such an amazing job of just making small tweaks with positivity. So yes, early on in that round robin, we were aware that I think we finished after round robin number 1, we were 4 out of 5 or 5 out of 6. I can't remember. We didn't look like we were going to go all the way, but to the outside world, but internally we were positive. Internally, we knew that our boat had shown flashes of super high speed. So therefore, okay, in this boat, we've got something that can go really fast. Where are our weaknesses? How do we get this boat up to maximum boat speed quicker than before? Therefore, how do we learn faster? than everybody else. We never let our chins go down. And amazingly, I think this was the third campaign with this group, with this syndicate. And in the first one, we got knocked out by Team New Zealand in Bermuda in the Challengers Series semi-final, and Team New Zealand went on to win. In the second campaign together, we lost the Challengers Series final to Prada. So we'd had two effectively failures, but man, it sounds so cheesy. In my mind, they weren't failures. We learned so much from that. And we learned so much from that when we came this summer to what to the outside world could have been perceived as a sticky preliminary round and first round robin, we were like, oh, this is nothing. This is nothing. This is nothing like the pressure we felt before. We know how to deal with this. And yeah, we definitely didn't see those first two campaigns as failures. They were just amazing opportunities to learn. So with that logic, going one step further each time, that means we should win the America's Cup in 2027, right? That's what I'm saying.
Obviously. You're going to come on as the last minute replacement and
that's it. Helmet across the line.
Yeah. Good stuff. Well, yeah, no, that reminds me, Stephen Bartlett talks about how he has a person who is head of failure. Stop. He's got to fail as fast as you possibly can. It's a really interesting mindset to have in a positive way, right? So in amongst all of that, looking at what can go right out of failure, were there any times where, in Alex Ferguson language, the boot got thrown?
No, there wasn't. There was, as I've alluded to, the America's Cup is a design race. It's, yes, you have to be fit, you have to be an amazing sailor, but you need the fastest boat. So where there is often conflict is maybe, but where there is often tension and friction is between the sailing team and the design team and the performance team, all coming in every day to try and make this boat go faster. And there's a lot of different opinions on what you can do to make the boat go faster. And there was no areas of friction because I think the environment that we set up was an environment where we were allowed to disagree. So you were allowed as a team to not think the same, and you're allowed to, we called it disagreeing well. You could disagree well. You don't have to have a fist slamming on the table going, no, you're wrong. It's absolutely fine to have a difference of opinion on something to make that boat go faster. Let's sit there, disagree well, speak up and talk about it. And that ultimately, if you do that really well, then you avoid the chest thumping, oh, you need to pull your socks up kind of moment. So we never had like what you'd call the hairdryer treatment from Sir Alex. But one of my favorite memories of this America's Cup is we were going through the Challenger Series. So Challenger Series final against Luna Rossa. So call it the semi-final before the big match against Team New Zealand. And we were racing Luna Rossa, who is an amazing America's Cup team. I was lucky enough to race with them in 2013. So just a team steeped in history and formidable opponents. And over the first 4 days of racing, we tied every day. We went 1-1, then we went 2-2, then we went 3-3, then we went 4-4, and then we finally broke them and went 6-4 and then won 7-4. And on the morning that, the morning of the day that we got the 2 wins in the bag, and I've been sailing with Ben Ainsley for 15 years, in the America's Cup world for 10 years. He just delivered a really nice message to us. Not long, not overly dramatic, but just cleared everyone out the room other than the sailing team and just delivered a very succinct, powerful message that we took onto the water that day and went on to win 2 races. So that was a pretty awesome moment from someone who's a legend in our sport to live in that moment live as he delivered his thoughts on what he thought we could achieve was very cool to witness. So that was probably the most powerful moment in terms of our, call it dressing room hype ups. Yeah.
Awesome. Give us a little insight.
Do you know, I'd feel a little uncomfortable doing it, but it was fundamentally around what he thought of us. It was totally empowering. And what he very rarely, Ben very rarely dishes out praise openly. And I'm sure internally he thinks it, and you wouldn't be at a table with him if he didn't think the world of you. But to pick that moment to, for the first time in a very long time, really empower people in that room and let them know what he thought of us as individuals and collectively, and what we have stood on the verge of doing. You could see every person in that room grow 2 inches in that moment. And we went out that day and we duffed up the Italians. We beat them in 2 races in really windy, wavy conditions, in conditions that actually is really hairy. Scary, no, but on the edge. And we all skipped down the dock with a spring in our step because we'd had this collective moment together that really put us on the front foot for the day. And it should have been the most nervous day of sailing in all of our sailing careers, you know, going into a decisive day in the LV final for our country. And it's quite the opposite. We all went down smiling because we felt like we were all in it together and on the right path because of those words.
It's amazing. It sounds amazing.
It was.
Yeah, some of the great leaders are the ones with the least words, right? Just through
That's it.
And when it comes, it's like...
That's it. That's Ben in a nutshell. That's Ben in a nutshell. Is he says he doesn't often spend too many words, but when he speaks, it has a good effect.
Yeah, it definitely did. I remember watching it, and to say it's not scary, I don't know how you guys didn't come out with a clean pair of pants every day.
It's interesting that day in particular, the day that we won the 2 races. There was a lay day before it. When I say a lay day, a shore day, no racing plan that day. And the day before it was what we call in the sailing world, like proper marginal. It was 20 to 25 knots. So really windy and 1.5 meter seas. So all of the logic in the world would say, right, we've just sailed for 4 days in a row where we've gone toe to toe with the Italians and tied every day. The boat needs to stay in the shed. We need to relax and rest our sailors. We need to have effectively our halftime break. But the following day was a race day where the breeze was slightly less, call it 15 to 20 knots, and the sea state was slightly less. So it was going to be 1 meter, not 1.8 meters. So we made the decision to go and train really hard. We made the decision to go out on the lay day, and it was going to be the biggest conditions we'd ever sailed in. Like, it was so loose. This boat was going downwind at 50, 55, 60 miles an hour, jumping out the back of waves. It was such hard work to keep this thing from, like, basically capsizing and ending the America's Cup. Prada didn't go out that day. We went out that day and we put in a proper shift. So fast forward 24 hours, we roll out of the harbour, having had that really nice speech from Ben with a spring in our step, and we turned into the wind and the waves, and we were like, oh, this is going to be a bloody cakewalk compared to what we trained in yesterday. Prada turned around the corner, and they must have just gone, holy crap, this is going to be a sporty day. So because we'd gone out the day before and trained hard, that meant the following day, we could effectively race easy. And that's what we did. And that's when we broke them and went 6-4 up.
Awesome. Hard work, piss it off. No, I love also the fact that you talk in the language like we broke.
Yeah, it felt like
it. Awesome. When you were bringing it down to earth a little bit, when Bart Simpson passed away, well, I guess, you know, the fledgling boats, if you like.
Yeah, first time with them fast, basically. Yeah.
Yeah. First time. Yeah. How did that affect you privately? And how does that live on in terms of safety? And I mean, not in the health, sure. How does it live on mentally with you and the other guys?
Yeah. I mean, that day, there is a number of us, a massive part of the sailing community that will remember for the rest of their lives. It was in San Francisco in 2013. Bart was training and racing with a Swedish outfit called Artemis. I was there with Luna Rossa, the team that we then went on to beat sort of 11 years later. And it was the most tragic occurrence. He lost his life when his boat that he was training on that day capsized. Lear and the boys obviously lost the most incredible dad. And as a British sailing community, we lost not only a huge talent, a gold and a silver Olympic medalist, but Bart was we've talked about this already, haven't we, about having that person that is going to back you all the way, no matter what, that you can call, and they will celebrate with you and commiserate with you. Bart was that for so many people within British Olympic sailing and wider British sailing. It rocked a generation of us to our core. To lose him, it still resonates to this day. On the day that we won the LV final, a group of us, like myself and Dylan Fletcher and Giles Scott and Ben and Lee McMillan, and the list goes on and on of the guys that come out of the British Olympic sailing. We were having a beer on the balcony, and he naturally pops up in conversation all the time. And we'll do a few funny stories, because there was a lot of funny stories associated with Bart. But there's absolutely no doubt in my mind that he would be right up there with sort of Ben and Ian Percy and those guys, still at the forefront of British sailing today. Me personally, I really struggled with it. I really, really struggled with it. Max Serena, who was the CEO of Luna Rossa, the challenge that I was with at the time, and Patrizio Bertelli, the gentleman who owns Prada, the main backer. Patrizio flew from Italy to San Francisco overnight, and he sat down with myself and Giles Scott and Chris Draper and Paul Campbell-James, all the other British sailors that were with the Italian team. And he said, boys, if you think these boats are too dangerous to race on, I will shut this campaign down overnight. I mean, and that's no mean feat. This is a campaign that was probably costing upwards of 60 or 70 million euros. And he was happy for us to stop if we thought it was unsafe. And to be honest, we didn't get back to him straight away. We thought about it. And Max Serena was incredible with us. He gave us a good amount of time to go and mourn Bart and go to his funeral and come back to San Francisco. But that America's Cup wasn't nice for anyone, to be honest. After that, it was horrific. And I didn't enjoy sailing fast for a while. It really took me a long time to kind of forget or stop thinking about all of the incidents that could go wrong as we're sailing these crazy boats around. The one upshot of Bart's death is the fact that I think in that specific moment in time, we were a little bit like Formula One in the 60s or 70s, when they just started going super fast and the safety wasn't there to match it. And we weren't there. We weren't where Formula One are, but it made us accelerate our safety side of things beyond belief. And it's not how any of us wanted to get the sport to be safe and proper as it is now. It's in a good place with its safety precautions. But if there's one upshot of it, it would be that. But no, personally, it absolutely kicked me in. And I didn't enjoy my sailing for a good probably year after that, I'd say.
And well, thank you for sharing so bluntly. So I mean, it's in your unconscious mind, as grief does, drifts away, but subconsciously leaves those marks. When you were, you talked about that marginal day going out there, it's 50, 60 miles an hour.
Yeah,
it's still
absolutely. It is. And I'd love to go, oh, do you know what, Pete? No, I'm totally over it. And I don't even think about it ever. And I'm sure some people don't. We're all made up really differently. So it's fine if you do, it's fine if you don't. But for me, like, on the days that it's going to be really windy and we're going out on a foiling boat and I'm leaving the house early, I'll go and give the kids a kiss. I really do. It's a pretty wild sport, and been unfortunate to lose a few friends within sailing for various reasons. And I remember my dad, two of the great talents that he coached with Johnny Merricks, the Olympic silver medalist, and then Glyn Charles, a fantastic young British sailor, lost his life in the Sydney Hobart race in 99. So it's a dangerous sport. And I lost a dear friend of mine, Sam Richmond, sailing as well. But what it really does do is it makes you really appreciate the days that you have around. And I know that sounds so cheesy, but it really does make you go, do you know what? This is just fine. And like, I'm going to enjoy this. And you gotta crack on and enjoy it, because it makes you realize your days are numbered or finite, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. I've lost a few along the way, but in different circumstances.
It can shift the dial faster than anything, doesn't it? Like death and loss and mourning. It shifts the dial in your thought processes and your approach to life faster than anything. I think I'm lucky enough that I haven't seen enough of it. If you manage it well with good people around you, shift it for a positive eventually. Maybe. I don't know.
Closing with a few short, sharp questions and answers. What's one piece of advice that you have taken with you, I guess, from an earlier age and go with on the daily?
Do you know, it's really short and simple, but I think it resonates back to both of ours sharing our feelings about losing friends and mentors. Is life is just so short. So just do what makes you happy. And when you boil it down to that, just do what makes you happy. It's pretty simple. And I've been really lucky that in 23 years, I've been able to do what makes me happy within work or my career, but actually just do what makes you happy outside of that with your family. What makes you happy? What makes you want to get out of bed and take on the day? So find that and then just do it more, because you'll get more happy and then life will be better. So I guess it's quite simple, but yeah, just do what makes you happy and life will be just fine.
Beautiful. And what defines success for you now in comparison to when you're a bit younger?
That's very interesting. I mean, success all the way through my teens, my 20s, and maybe even my 30s is completely results driven. It would be a score. It would be a regatta score, a ranking in a regatta finishing. It would have been completely right. I need to do this. I need to do this. I want to win this event. I want to get here. I want to do this many races in the America's Cup. What defines success now is probably how well the team, although it's completely immeasurable, is how well the team went through 6 months of the most intense sporting competition that I think you can see across quite a lot of sports, and did it with 100% the right attitude, with positivity, with no infighting within the team, with no agendas, with no cliques. It was the most harmonious team that I've ever worked with, and a few of our senior sailors should be very proud of that. And that's what I define as success. And as we talked about earlier, you do that bit well, and quite often the result side of success will follow.
Yeah, it's a beautiful way of putting it. And talking of your seniority, what's next?
What's next is my passion for the America's Cup and sailing at the highest level lives on. I'm going to go and do what I call normal sailing. So I'm going to go and sail on boats with keels and spinnakers that don't fly out the water. So I've got a really nice year of sailing with incredibly close friends in Grand Prix race teams where I'm not going to be at max heart rate the whole time. And I'm going to trim spinnakers and jibs and talk about wind shifts and come ashore and not have any guilt for having a beer because I've got a fitness test coming up in 3 weeks' time. So I'm going to go back and fall in love with the traditional sport that I grew up with. And then amazingly, like last week, just through speaking to people in Auckland and rubbing shoulders with people down in Auckland, in Barcelona. There's been a couple of opportunities that have popped up in the city, in the big smoke, would you believe? So last week I was on a train from Portsmouth up to London and ended up in the city having a few meetings with a few companies. I mean, it was a whole new world to me, but really excited to go and look around that side of things, and think about my life post sailing as well. So that's, in a nutshell, that's the direction I'm heading, and I'm really, really happy with it. And I think a lot of the reason I'm really happy with it is because I really planned for this moment in time when I was going to exit out of high performance sport.
Awesome. I mean, it sounds like variation is the spice of life.
Yes, it's definitely a varied year coming up. Yeah.
You're hitting it nicely. And now my final and probably most important question is, because of all of this sailing in different classes and time that you've got on your hands, are you going to come to Seaview and sail in a Seaview One design one evening?
Now, I would love to, but what I do know about the Seaview, well, first of all, I'll say that the Seaview is arguably one of the most beautiful places to sail in the UK. But what I do know about you Seaview One design sailors is that you're all absolute weapons, and the boats are super tweaky. And if you know how to get the best out of the One design, you just are off like a robber's dog. So to be honest, I'd love to, but I think I'd get absolutely humbled by all of you locals down there. But I tell you what I will do is I'll come over and have a pint with you, and we'll watch the sun go down and carry on this conversation.
That's great. Sounds great. Freddie, thank you so much. Absolute legendary conversation. Really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Not at all. Cheers, Pete.